My family called me too stupid for college, so I became a professor. Growing up in a cramped two-bedroom apartment where the walls seemed to absorb every harsh word, I learned early that expectations could crush dreams before they even formed. My grades weren't stellar in high school, mostly hovering around C's and D's, and my family never let me forget it. Every report card felt like a public execution where I stood trial for my inadequacies. My older brother sailed through school effortlessly, collecting A's like they were participation trophies, while I struggled to understand why numbers and letters on a page seemed to mock me. The dinner table conversations always circled back to my academic failures. My parents would discuss my brother's future college plans with excitement, then glance at me with that mixture of disappointment and resignation that parents reserve for their problem children. They talked about trade schools and manual labor jobs, as if they were consolation prizes for kids who couldn't cut it in the real world. The message was clear: college wasn't for people like me. When senior year arrived, I watched my classmates fill out college applications with a mix of envy and acceptance. My guidance counselor suggested community college as a gentle way of saying I wasn't university material. My parents agreed, relief washing over their faces that someone else had finally voiced what they'd been thinking all along. The weight of their low expectations settled on my shoulders like a heavy coat I couldn't remove. But something inside me refused to accept their verdict. Maybe it was stubbornness, maybe it was spite, or maybe it was just the desperate need to prove that I was more than their limited vision of me. I started researching colleges online, spending hours in the library after school, diving into websites and forums where students shared their experiences. The internet became my secret weapon, a place where I could explore possibilities that my family had never considered for me. I discovered that many colleges had programs for students like me, students who didn't fit the traditional mold. I learned about learning disabilities, different teaching methods, and support systems that could help struggling students succeed. The more I researched, the more I realized that my family's assessment of my abilities might have been premature. I wasn't stupid, I just learned differently than my brother. After months of secret preparation, I applied to a small state university known for its supportive environment and diverse student body. I wrote my admissions essay about overcoming low expectations and my determination to succeed despite the odds. When the acceptance letter arrived, I felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration that I'd never experienced before. The first step toward proving everyone wrong was complete. My parents' reaction was predictable. They worried about the financial burden, questioned whether I was setting myself up for failure, and suggested I reconsider community college as a safer option. Their lack of faith stung, but it also fueled my determination. I took out student loans, applied for every scholarship I could find, and prepared to leave for college with more motivation than money. The first semester was brutal. I struggled with time management, study skills, and the overwhelming pace of university life. My high school had never taught me how to take proper notes, how to study effectively, or how to manage multiple assignments simultaneously. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of information, gasping for air while my classmates seemed to swim effortlessly through their coursework. But instead of giving up, I sought help. I discovered the university's Learning Center, where tutors help students develop better study habits and organizational skills. I learned about different learning styles and discovered that I was a kinesthetic learner who needed to move and interact with material to understand it. This revelation changed everything about how I approached my education. I started attending every study group, office hours session, and supplemental instruction class available. I recorded lectures and listened to them while walking around campus. I created flashcards and study guides that incorporated movement and visual elements. Slowly, my grades began to improve. The C's became B's, and eventually some of those B's became A's. My family's reaction to my improving grades was complex. They seemed proud but also confused, as if I had somehow cheated the system they believed in. My brother, who had always been the academic star, began to show signs of resentment as I started achieving success he had assumed was beyond my reach. The family dynamics shifted in ways none of us had anticipated. By my junior year, I had discovered my passion for learning and, more importantly, for helping others learn. I became a tutor myself, working with students who reminded me of my younger self. I found that my own struggles had given me unique insights into the challenges facing students who didn't fit the traditional academic mold. My professors began to notice my enthusiasm and dedication. One particularly influential professor approached me about graduate school. The suggestion seemed absurd at first. I was still the kid who had been deemed too stupid for college just a few years earlier. But she saw something in me that I was only beginning to recognize in myself. She talked about the importance of educators who understood struggle, who could connect with students from different backgrounds and learning styles. The idea of graduate school terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. I spent weeks researching programs, talking to professors, and trying to imagine myself in that role. The imposter syndrome was overwhelming. Surely someone would realize I didn't belong in graduate school and send me back to where I came from. But the same stubbornness that had got me into college in the first place pushed me forward. I applied to several graduate programs, focusing on education and learning sciences. My personal statement wrote itself. I had lived the story of educational struggle and triumph that many programs claimed to address. When the acceptance letters arrived, I felt the same mixture of terror and exhilaration I had experienced years earlier, but this time it was amplified by the knowledge of how far I had already come. Graduate school presented new challenges, but also new opportunities. I dove into research about learning disabilities, alternative teaching methods, and educational equity. My own experiences became the foundation for my academic work. I studied how traditional educational systems failed students like me and developed strategies for creating more inclusive learning environments. My family's perception of me underwent a gradual transformation. They began to see me not as the struggling student they had written off, but as someone who had accomplished something remarkable. My brother, who had coasted through his undergraduate years, struggled to find direction after graduation, while I had discovered my calling in education. The dissertation process was grueling, but I was sustained by the memory of every teacher who had dismissed me, every family member who had doubted me, and every moment I had doubted myself. I wrote about the psychological impact of low expectations on student achievement, drawing from both personal experience and extensive research. My work caught the attention of several universities looking for faculty members who could bring authenticity to their education programs. When I defended my dissertation successfully, I felt a sense of completion that went beyond academic achievement. I had proven to myself, and to everyone who had doubted me, that intelligence comes in many forms, and that determination can overcome even the most discouraging circumstances. The kid who was too stupid for college had earned a doctoral degree. The job market for new professors was competitive, but my unique background and research focus made me stand out. I interviewed at several universities, sharing my story and my vision for inclusive education. The offers that came in felt like validation not just of my academic abilities, but of my entire journey from struggling student to educational advocate. I accepted a position at a university that valued diversity and innovation in education. My first day as a professor felt surreal. I kept expecting someone to tell me there had been a mistake, that I didn't belong in that classroom. But as I looked at my students, many of whom reminded me of my younger self, I realized that I was exactly where I needed to be. My teaching style was informed by my own struggles with traditional education. I used multiple teaching methods, provided various ways for students to demonstrate their knowledge, and created a classroom environment where struggle was seen as part of the learning process rather than a sign of inadequacy. My students responded positively to an instructor who understood their challenges from personal experience. My research continued to focus on educational equity and alternative learning approaches. I published papers about the impact of family expectations on student achievement, the importance of diverse teaching methods, and the role of personal experience in effective education. My work began to gain recognition in academic circles, and I was invited to speak at conferences about overcoming educational barriers. The day I received tenure was one of the most emotional moments of my life. I thought about the teenager who had been told he wasn't college material, the young man who had struggled through his first semester, and the graduate student who had battled imposter syndrome. Each version of myself had contributed to the professor I had become. My family's transformation was perhaps the most surprising aspect of my journey. They went from seeing me as the family disappointment to bragging about their son, the professor. My parents, who had once worried about my ability to succeed in any career, now introduced me with pride to their friends and neighbors. The shift in their expectations was as dramatic as the change in my own self-perception. My brother and I developed a new relationship based on mutual respect rather than academic competition. He had found his own path in life, and we were both able to appreciate each other's different strengths and approaches. The family dynamics that had once been a source of pain became a foundation for growth and understanding. Years into my career, I established a mentorship program for first-generation college students and those from families with low educational expectations. I wanted to provide the support and encouragement that I had to find for myself. The program became one of the most rewarding aspects of my work, allowing me to directly impact students who faced similar challenges to those I had experienced. My office became a safe space for students who felt out of place in the academic world. I shared my own story selectively, when it might help a struggling student see that their current difficulties didn't define their potential. The look of hope that crossed their faces when they realized that their professor had once been in their shoes was worth every moment of struggle I had endured. The research I conducted began to influence policy discussions about educational equity and support systems for struggling students. I testified before state education committees about the importance of diverse teaching methods and the need for better support systems in schools. My personal experience gave weight to my professional recommendations. I developed online courses that reached students who couldn't attend traditional classes, using technology to create accessible learning environments. The internet that had once been my secret weapon for researching colleges became a tool for reaching students who, like my younger self, needed alternative pathways to education. My most significant breakthrough came when I was invited to give a keynote address at a national education conference. Standing before hundreds of educators, I told my story of transformation from struggling student to tenured professor. The standing ovation that followed wasn't just for my academic achievements, but for the representation of possibility that my journey provided. The speech went viral on social media, reaching thousands of students and families who were struggling with similar challenges. I received emails from teenagers who had been told they weren't college material, from parents who were reconsidering their expectations, and from educators who wanted to learn more about inclusive teaching methods. My family watched the online video of my keynote address with tears in their eyes. My mother called me afterward, her voice choked with emotion as she apologized for not believing in me sooner. My father, who had always been a man of few words, simply said he was proud of who I had become. The healing that conversation brought was worth the years of struggle. As I reflect on my journey from struggling student to tenured professor, I realize that my family's low expectations, while painful, may have been the catalyst I needed to push beyond conventional limitations. Their doubt forced me to develop an internal motivation that external validation could never have provided. I learned to believe in myself when no one else would. The teenager who was deemed too stupid for college became living proof that intelligence is not fixed, that potential can be unlocked with the right support and determination, and that our greatest struggles can become our most powerful tools for helping others. My story continues to unfold, but the transformation from family disappointment to academic success remains the foundation of everything I do. Today, when I walk across campus in my professor's regalia, I carry with me the memory of that scared teenager who dared to dream beyond his family's expectations. Every student I mentor, every paper I publish, and every barrier I help break down is a testament to the power of refusing to accept other people's limitations on our potential. The family that once called me too stupid for college now has a professor in their midst. But more importantly, they have learned that their expectations were never the ceiling of my possibilities. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to prove the people we love most completely wrong about what we can achieve.